Hi, my name is Janne Aagaard. I'm a Danish journalist and a podcast producer. For many years, I've been doing true crime podcast here from Lisbon. I've lived in Lisbon for almost 8 years now, and I've enjoyed this beautiful city during COVID in all its very silent glory. Now it's back to normal with a lot of tourists, and I'm the latest guest on the Portugal, the Simple Life podcast. I talked to Dylan on why I love Portugal and my plans for world domination.
Welcome back, or welcome to another episode of Portugal, the Simple Life, and I'm really delighted to be. You're going to have to help me with the pronunciation. Janne
Aagaard.
Aagaard.
Yeah.
Jeez, okay, I'm glad I asked you to help. Yeah, Janne Aagaard. Acho é água como gás, não é? É água
Não, água sem gás, é ótimo.
Certo?
Obrigada.
Muito obrigado.
Perfeito.
We are just currently sitting here in a little park in Lisbon, having some food and I'm having some wine. Janne is behaving herself, having some coffee. Thank you for being on the podcast.
Thank you for having me. I'm very excited about that. I'm just going to move the water so they can see the whole screen,
Thank
right?
you. Why don't you start off, Janne, telling us a little bit about you?
Yeah, well, I'm from Denmark. I'm 52 years of age. I am a trained journalist.
Okay.
I was trained very young, and then a little bit later I went to Australia for quite a while, where I lived,
pick up a little bit of an accent.
A little bit of an accent. It's been a while. I stayed in Australia for almost 3 years and would have loved to stay. But alas, when you get into Australia on a student visa, there's no point. You can't stay.
Okay.
They
can't be
visa.
upgraded. That can't be eventually upgraded.
Only if you get sponsored, and getting sponsored is quite hard in Australia.
Okay.
So there's different chances. You can get married, which I did not want to, or you can get a regional visa if you want to work, for instance, at Uluru or Darwin in the tourism industry.
Okay.
But since I spent quite a lot of money on my education, I thought that was a bit overkill. So I ended back in Europe in 2006.
Okay.
And I've done a lot of different jobs. Maybe we'll take just a 10-second break.
Wait for the planes. We are in the middle of Lisbon on the flight path of the airport, so...
Very true. Let's hope it's not rush hour. So I was trained very young, and then I worked for a couple of years as a crime reporter. And when I got back to Denmark, I picked that up and I became an editor of a magazine for the Royal Danish Police. And I did that for a few years, and I worked for another police precinct as well. And then I was pretty tired of my industry in general. And I did my own company in 2012, where I did a lot of courses for journalists and communicators. And then I was kind of tired of it. So in 17, 18, I was diagnosed with an eye disease on one eye.
Okay.
And I was told that I was going to go blind on that one eye. And that was a very difficult time for me. And I decided that I wanted to spend more time traveling while I still had a good eyesight and stuff like that. And so I sold my apartment in Denmark and took out some of the money, invested in another, took out some money to go traveling. And I think it must have been the fall of 17, I came to Lisbon just for a week. And because I was with one of my good friends traveled with me, because there was the two of us, we decided to go to a wine bar. So in I walk, and there was a really sweet man who actually opened the bar because he was closing it at the time. And we ended up getting insanely drunk and going home at 2 o'clock. And before that week was over, I'd been there quite a few times and was asked out as well. And I decided, well, why don't I come back to Lisbon?
By the same man?
By the same guy,
okay.
the wine bar owner, or one of the wine bar owners. And so I decided to do a month in Lisbon. I'm like a digital nomad. I can work from most places. I was teaching a lot of the time, so the longer I stayed in Lisbon, I did have to do quite a lot of trips back to Copenhagen, where I was teaching at the time. And then came May. The apartment I had bought as a replacement, the very small one, was finished, and I had to make a decision to stay in Lisbon or to go back to Copenhagen. And I thought, I'll rent it out. It's very easy in Copenhagen. And then from there on, I went like a year at a time, and that was almost 8 years ago.
Wow. Okay.
And a couple of years back, I made the decision to sell the apartment and stay here full time.
Okay.
And I've been with the wine bar owner ever since.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it was love at first sight.
Pretty much, actually, yeah. I was actually just looking for a holiday fling, and he knows that. And he was not looking for anything in particular at all. But somehow it just worked out.
It just worked out.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what year did you decide to move?
Well, I've been a tax resident for a couple of years, but I lived here since 17. It's 18,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. Oh, so did you do the NHR thing?
I did that 2 years ago, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. When it was still running.
Yeah. Because what ended happening was that 1.5, 2 years after I came, COVID hit.
Okay.
So that meant a big change in our lives because
Yeah.
the bar closed, of course.
Oh, yes, I can imagine.
Yeah. And him and his partner was like, what do we do now? And at that time, my courses was changed into online courses, and I was being a little bit tired of it as well. And then an old company contacted me I worked with before and asked me if I wanted to write true crime podcasts for them.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, sure, why not? It was an okay income. And then after the first season of that went really well. It's a show called Murder in the North.
Okay.
And then my partner said, why don't we do our own podcast production company? He has a background in advertising. So we started a company. It's called Meow Productions. And we are now on its, 5th or 6th year. And we produced 12, 14 shows.
Is it true crime as well? Or
It is, but we do a specific sort of it because it's journalistic podcasts.
Sure.
But it's what we call scripted podcasts.
Okay.
And for people who don't know the difference, there's two kinds of podcasts. There's the scripted and there's the one we're doing now. Live on tape, non-scripted, we just have a chat.
Exactly.
And so we do scripted and the whole
Are you
business...
sure you don't want any pica-pau?
I might just taste it.
Okay, come on.
Yeah. So...
I'm going to give this part to you.
Yeah, thank you.
Pica-pau.
Yes.
In case people don't know, what's pica-pau?
Pica-pau is picking on food, like with the beak. You pica-pau.
Yeah, pica-pau is a woodpecker.
And it's always really, really nice. I love this. It's very typical
good,
Portuguese.
It's very good. Yeah, very typical Portuguese. What we call a petisco in Portuguese, a snack or tapas, but very popular. It's good.
It's actually really nice.
So then have some more.
Yeah.
And some bread.
But I'm chatting as well.
That's okay.
I'm not a big bread fan.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then you are not in the right place if you don't like bread.
Yeah.
It's a big part of the table, yeah.
Yeah,
and
but
the food.
I'm very spoiled at home because
You have good bread there?
Yeah, in my house because my partner cooks a lot. He's very much into wine and food, and he's baking as well. So what can I say? I'm a very happy chappy, as we say in Australia.
We will we'll talk about your partner and how he's opened up Portugal to you, because that's the same for me.
Yes.
You mentioned that your husband's very Portuguese. My wife is very Portuguese, but we'll come to that. Just tell us more about the podcast.
So the scripted podcast has one big advantage, which is that we can version it. So that means some of our main clients are big Danish podcast distributors. And so we sell to them in Danish, but preferably in a lot of languages at the same time. Okay. And then we have a big, almost like a pipeline, a production where we have editors, translators, different voices, different sound designers.
Gotcha.
So we have this big production actually going. And some years have been amazing, like during COVID. That was like a huge startup. 2023 post-COVID was super slow. And 24 has been okay.
Yeah.
But we give it a sec.
It's okay. I think we'll be okay.
I'll tell you a funny anecdote in a minute.
It's a tap. It's a tap flight.
Yeah, we always say hello tap. We have a podcast studio at home where I sometimes do some voiceovers.
Okay.
I will introduce some of the shows to try and brand me as a true crime author in Denmark. So we have those 12, 14 productions in more than 10 languages. We recently did our first Polish production.
Oh, wow.
Which was amazing to try. And it's really been... Well, for me it's very easy. I'm the salesperson, I'm the CEO of the company, so I sell and I write. And everything else is my partner. He used to be in advertising, so he's very good with people, very good with dealing with different kind of personalities and so forth. So that works out really well because I'm not that in love with dealing with a lot of people, to be honest. So I'm quite happy about that division of labor.
And I mean, where do you guys get the inspiration from for these stories? Is it stories that you've come across?
Well, yes and no. We usually do. So what we do is we do a pitch like anything else. So you put together, it can be an area that we look at and look at what has been happening. For instance, we started with murder in the Mediterranean and took all those countries and looked at what were some of the crimes that made an effect on the society at that time it happened, until those. It can also be a different topic. We did a really good show, I think, was called Female Spies.
Okay.
Which was from all over the world, which was just portraits or like essences and the most exciting things about these female characters. So we spend a lot of time on research, of course. Sometimes we have to pay researchers from the countries as well.
Sure.
And then they will act as fact checkers when the script is done.
Okay.
So it's very much a journalistic production.
Interesting. Any Portuguese stories?
Yes, we did actually some Portuguese stories, and I had just moved here, so for me it was a great option to get to know the country a little bit.
Yes.
And I found out that Portugal is an extremely peaceful country with very few homicides, both in general, but also few of the really awful ones.
Yeah.
Instead, Portugal has a long history of violence, domestic violence, unfortunately. But the killings are quite few.
Yeah.
So
that's a good thing, I guess.
It is a very good thing. So I went to...
No serial killers.
Oh yes, there are few, but very few. Actually, there is a Lisbon Ripper that was never caught.
Okay.
Which was in the 80s, not far from here, where female sex workers were targeted and killed and maimed afterwards.
Oh my goodness.
3 of them as far as I recall, and they never caught the guy.
Wow.
There's been a lot of speculation, and some suspect a retired cop. We also had a retired cop, Tiu, what was his name? I forgot his name. Tiu Toy, in the north, who killed 2 or 3 young girls.
Okay.
After his retirement, though, and threw them, and they were...
Riley.
Yeah. So he threw them in the river, and they were found at Foz de Figueira, among other things.
At Figueira de Foz?
Figueira de Foz, yes.
He was in Porto, and
no, he was some of the hinterland. He was in a very small city.
Okay, so he was in the smaller part.
Yeah, and he dumped them in the reservoir.
And the bodies washed up there? Yeah. Wow, okay.
So there is those 2 or 3, and then there was, I think, probably Portugal's worst crime, which was Mataceta, which was a bank teller who apparently lost his mind, and he was having friends or affair with a younger girl, and he drove her and her friends to a beach where he killed all of them and killed his wife and daughter, but spared the son.
Yeah.
But that was like those 3 crimes we found here.
Really isolated
Yeah,
events.
very isolated and very... I mean, they're still talked about, but quite a long time ago.
But it's an interesting thing because, I mean, I come from South Africa, so crime is murders every day. The news gets boring, actually, which is a horrible thing to say because these kind of things shouldn't get boring.
No.
But what I found here is it'll stay in the news for years.
Yeah.
Because it really shocks people to their core.
Yeah.
it is a safe place, and this kind of violence does really shock people here.
Yeah, and it's also a way for me, true crime. Like some people rub their nose at it, but for me, it says a lot about the culture.
Yeah.
A lot about how the way the judicial system works, which is one of my big interests. I study criminology, among other things. So I find it like it's just the dark side of the coin of any culture, and it says a lot about how we treat people, like how we go about perpetrating or sentencing these people, right?
Yes.
So I find that really, really interesting. In this screen, sorry. So for me, it holds endless fascination, and a lot of the time, without knowing, a lot of the shows turned out to be very feministic. Of course, because it's often women that are the target.
They get killed.
Yeah.
Yeah. Amazing. Let's come back to you coming to Portugal. So you came on a holiday. You met a Portuguese man. I think you might be the first guest who eventually came because they met a Portuguese man.
It's usually the women.
Yeah, I think so. Well, actually, okay. I don't know if I've had anybody that met a Portuguese woman and came. I need to check the records. It's been many years, but there obviously was also something that kept you here.
Yeah,
and that is keeping you here.
Very true. For me, I never felt very Danish. I grew up in Jutland, which is the part of Denmark. It's a peninsula that's connected to Germany.
Okay.
And it's a place where we don't talk a lot. So I just stuck out like a sore thumb. It was just not my place. I was kind of put there as an alien or something. So I've always enjoyed bigger cities. I enjoyed anonymity. We'll give it a second here. And I just enjoy different cultures because I always felt myself a little bit like an alien in my own country. So for me, it's a way of kind of normalizing being different. And I enjoy that immensely. I would have stayed in Australia if I had the option to do so. I was really crazy about that country.
Yeah.
Really liked it, liked the people. But having a family in Denmark and seeing them quite a lot, it does make things easier in Lisbon.
Yes, Australia's miles away from everything.
But I didn't imagine I was going to end up in Portugal. I was more for Spain because I spoke some Spanish.
Okay.
And I traveled a lot in South America. I've been an exchange student in Panama and stuff like that. So I thought more of Spain. So it was very much like a draw of the luck or whatever you say. And I'm always open to new experiences. And I really like learning languages. So having to learn a new language was like icing on the cake for me. I really enjoyed that.
I mean, it's interesting because the term stumbled. I kind of stumbled upon Portugal. That's happened a lot with guests on the podcast who have just happened to find themselves here. Some because of necessity. A lot of people that came during COVID and they never left. So it's quite interesting. People stumble upon this place because it's not really on the top of anybody's list of where to go, where to live, where to retire, and then they stumble upon this place and they go, okay, wow. So besides your partner, what were those things where you looked around and went, yeah, this will work for me?
There was a lot of geography to it.
Okay.
Because I lived many years in Brisbane, which is by a riverside out to the ocean. And that kind of mix, it's the same size city, has a well-functioning transportation system, has great weather all year round, the same kind of climate, even some of the same of my favorite trees are here, like the jacaranda, which is very typical for Brisbane.
Yeah, where I'm born in South Africa, it's the jacaranda capital. It's Pretoria. It's full of jacarandas. So coming here and I saw the jacarandas, I was like, okay, this is nice. This is a nice little reminder.
Of course, the beauty. Copenhagen is quite an old city as well. So it was nice to be in a city that appreciates culture and beauty. The many small parks and green areas. I was very fascinated with Baixo Chiado at first.
Yeah.
Give it a sec.
We'll see what airline it is. We're also plane spotting today. EasyJet.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And just the whole history of Portugal. I like to do a lot of different gigs, so I had a very short but glorious career as a tourist guide for a Danish company for some weeks, which made me travel the countryside and Castelo de Vide and some of those towns, the Grave, Pedro and Inés, and all those historical. Yeah, exactly. Yep. So that was really cool and got a better understanding of the country. Also, in many ways, I think the Portuguese remind me of the Jutlanders.
How so?
They are essentially peasants, and they lived in poor times. Yeah. We share some of the same food, potatoes and pork, very common in Denmark.
Yeah, we don't waste any food.
No, we prepare it in any kind of way.
Yeah.
As I mentioned, my partner's from Alentejo, so some of that talking a little less is very Alentejano, which is very Jutlandic. And also the humbleness of the people, I think is very similar to where I grew up.
Yeah. Well, I mean, what should people know about the Portuguese? Because I'm always of the belief that a place is only as special as its people.
Yeah.
Of course, you have to interact with them and you have to come across them in very touristic places and things that sometimes is difficult. But I mean, you've got a real insider's perspective into the Portuguese people because you're with one.
Yes.
What do you want to say about the Portuguese?
They're absolutely lovely. I mean, I would say most of my partner's family doesn't speak English a lot, so it took me a long time to learn Portuguese well enough to interact. But once I got there, it was lovely. It was really, really lovely. I think people are very embracing and warm and very open towards other nationalities.
Yeah.
Very embracing of different cultures.
Yeah.
They love to learn how to say skål and do Danish dishes and try different things. I think that's so wonderful.
That's something as well that I've been here 16 years, and it's still something that really you don't find that in any country where people are literally and genuinely open. I'm from South Africa. I've never ever had anybody say a bad word. I've never had anybody. I mean, South Africa's got its own really bad history with apartheid and everything.
Yeah.
But I've never had anybody kind of give me a hard time about that. Where if I've got other countries that I've gone to, it comes up,
Okay.
And I'm like, why? Why are the people here like that? Because every person that we've interviewed on the podcast, every foreigner that I've come across, no matter where they're from, they feel welcomed here. They don't feel judged. They don't feel...
Yeah, I would say there's a backside to it as well, because I'm sure a lot of it has to do living with the regime for that many years, that something happens in public and something happens in private.
Sure.
And I would say I find it quite difficult to make Portuguese friends. I find them a little bit hesitant like that, and that's because I don't have a workplace and I don't have kids as well.
Yeah.
So I would say there's some of the obvious places where you get to interact and meet with people I don't have. So I found it quite a hard task to find Portuguese friends. But I would say it's very similar to my own country. So I don't find that there's anything wrong.
That's not strange with it. Yeah.
But it's very similar in Denmark. If you didn't go to school with people, it's very hard to get into. And also, of course, I speak Portuguese, but not as well as, so I will again be a little bit off with a big Portuguese group.
Interesting.
So I'm very dependent on finding people that I connect with and that I can meet one-to-one, because then I'll be able to manage.
Yeah, it's interesting, but because they are quite standoffish, they're quite shy.
Yeah.
I do find that their circles are very, very closely knit.
Very tight.
My first friends that I met in Portugal was through work.
Yes.
Because I had work here.
Yeah.
Outside of that, then it's been people that I've met through my wife. People that I've met through my kids.
Yeah.
Through the local rugby club. Things like that, where you go, okay, these are friendships, but if it wasn't for my son or my daughter or my wife, maybe, or my work, maybe that would have been a little bit more difficult.
Yeah.
But it's not because they're rude. I don't think.
Not at all.
Yeah,
They're
it's
just. I
interesting.
think they're very similar to Danish. I mean, it's a small population. It's quite homogenic, and also the huge amount of pressure that they have experienced since the financial crisis.
Yeah.
I can only imagine what that's done, both to like the mental health side of it, but also to the perception of how they experience their country is being invaded a little bit, right, by other nationalities. You can think about that.
Between my job as a realtor at Portugal Realty and hosting this podcast, life is pretty busy. But lately I've been receiving so many messages from people that want to know more about buying property here on Portugal's Silver Coast that I've got to do something about it. So starting now, for subscribers only, I'm offering up a 30-minute session per day. That's 5 30-minute sessions for a one-on-one meeting to talk about buying property here on Portugal's beautiful Silver Coast. This is for subscribers only. So please subscribe to book your session and get in touch with us through the links below via WhatsApp or email to book your session today. I'll be happy to speak to you. It's for subscribers only and it's completely free. I mean, as you know, I'm in real estate as well, so it's something that a lot of my clients, and I'm glad they ask it, but it's, do Portuguese people feel like they're being invaded? I think to a degree, yes. I think the biggest thing is that they worry that their way of life will change.
Yeah.
But then you think about how strongly the Portuguese hold on to that way of life. It probably won't.
But I mean, we're starting to see parallel societies, and they've always been here with the migration from the former colonies, of course.
Yes.
But also, if you go to Cascais, it's an American colony. I mean, it is, and a lot of Portuguese people are being forced out.
And it used to be kind of British. It was all British money.
So there's a reason why people come here, because it's beautiful and affordable, but at the same time, it does push out the local population. So I think it's a double-edged sword.
Yeah.
I have friends living in Tavira. It's very far between there's maybe half, maybe 40-60 to the foreign side now.
Is it that big now?
Yeah, it is. So I do understand that. At the same time, I think every Portuguese is aware of the tourism industry is a big factor, and they're happy that one is going well. And of course, a lot of Portuguese people are making money as well on this.
Yes.
And that's good for them,
Yeah.
But it does mean that there are parallel societies. There's people moving here who will never learn the language, which I think is a big mistake.
Yes.
And that creates those little pockets of foreigners.
Yeah.
So I try and go against that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, tell me about how your experience. You mentioned how with your husband's family, for example, your partner's family, how things changed a bit once you could start to hold a conversation. I found that when I first moved to Portugal, it wasn't a problem that I couldn't speak the language. Everybody was accommodating. Everybody helped. Lots of people speak English, even in random places.
Sure.
But once I started to be able to just have little conversations, share anecdotes, understand a little bit of a history of a dish or a place, that made the experience so more enriching. Just explain how that changed your experience with...
I didn't experience that because I have less contact points with Portuguese. I mean, we see the family a lot, which is lovely. But I have 2-3 Portuguese friends. One of them is not Portuguese but has lived here for 30 years. So, and I find I don't get to meet a lot or interact a lot with Portuguese in general.
Yeah.
So for me, it's quite isolated.
Yeah.
To be honest, I have to do a lot of effort. I joined a club. There was opening this club that was trying to build the gap between the foreigners and the Portuguese.
Is it the Red Bridge?
No, it's called 1000 Club.
Okay,
but it's ended up being a hedge fund dating rich people.
Okay.
Horrible. But I did meet a couple of really nice people there.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's delved into something, I'm not sure what.
But in terms of experience, because you mentioned how people will come here, they'll live here for a long time without learning the language. How has your experience of the country changed since knowing the basics?
Yeah, I do experience, you get a lot of goodwill by speaking Portuguese, of course. So I do experience that people are surprised when you speak Portuguese to them, and you go a longer way. You chat to them more. I'm not sure. I can't say I feel that there's been a change, because while I've been here, the COVID happened.
Yeah.
And it's very hard to step back from that, and to try and see that as a continuous line. So honestly, I don't know about that one. I have to say.
Yeah. What about with your partner? I mean, you've mentioned how, and we've seen the realities. Lisbon's changed in the last 5 years. I remember Lisbon 20 years ago. It was just this real authentic Portuguese village within a city. But you've been with your husband to the Alentejo, to places where maybe you wouldn't have gone if it hadn't been for him. What have you seen in those kind of, for lack of a better word, authentic places that has endeared you more to the country?
Yeah. Again, I just find it so similar to Denmark, to be honest. So for me, it's not very different. You know, you go out to... his family comes from Terushem, which is a little village on the border of Spain, and it's really lovely. Time stands still and everything, but still there's a well-functioning society. People stick to themselves. They live there for generations. There's a little market. There's a big public pool. You know. I don't see it that different. I do think it's easier to find friends outside Lisbon, to find the environment we're right now.
Portuguese friends or?
Yes,
Portuguese
in order,
friends.
to mingle a bit more. We are trying to build a house near Torres Vedras.
Yes.
To the south,
in a very small...
To the north, near
to the north, coast,
in a very, very small aldea. And I can say we met our neighbor 4 times in 1 hour. So I expect that once we move there in a year from now, that I will try and see if I can integrate better. And hopefully in Torres Vedras there will be more activities with Portuguese people as well. My hope is to get my C1, C2 certificate and to be able to attend university here. But I expect I'll be the oldest student. Yes. But I think I think Lisbon is hard because it's a very transient city. So most of the friends I made here have moved out again, partly because of rising real estate prices as one, and also because Lisbon is getting to be another big city.
Yeah.
The good thing is people are moving to smaller communities and are integrating more, like Suva. It is Seda, but there is the risk of that being like a foreign takeover some places, right?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, why, if you don't mind me asking, why are you and your husband making the move to Torres Vedras? What's the reason behind that? Take your time.
Thanks. We found land that was affordable.
Yeah.
And since I grew up in the flattest country on earth.
Is it the flattest? More so than the Netherlands even?
Our tallest point in Jutland is 134 meters or something.
Oh my goodness.
And it's called the Sky Mountain.
That answers that question, yeah.
Yeah. So I wanted a place with a view. So we found something near Monsunto on the hillside where we can see forever. It's a beautiful piece of land. And I've been a city person since I moved away from home. So for me, it was quite fear-inducing, the thought of moving to the countryside. But for me, COVID, we survived COVID by walking. We hike. So the love of nature kind of came back to me, which was a very childhood thing. So for me, it's a way to have a different kind of lifestyle. And also to go back to the company, I made a plan to pivot from being a journalist to being an author.
Okay.
So for us, being able to live in house, not have a mortgage, and makes me able to change into being a fiction writer.
Okay.
So yeah, so there's a lot of levels in that.
Okay.
Yeah.
I want to come back to something that you said when we started. Before we started, actually, you said your partner is very Portuguese.
Yes.
Unpack that. What did you mean? What makes him very Portuguese?
He's a very laid-back person, and he's extremely tolerant and curious, and at the same time can be quite quiet for long periods of time. And then you take him and you place him in his lovely family, and they will literally shout at each other for 4 hours, whether it should be Benfica or Sporting that is going to win this year.
Yeah.
And we can spend enormous amount of time yelling about that.
Did you have to get used to that? Because I found when I started dating my now wife, with the family, they would yell at each other, and I would think there's something going on, like there's a fight, and then I learned no, this is just talking.
Yeah, I still feel like that when they're talking on the phone.
Yeah.
But when you have them in front of you, you can tell that it's just banter and fun. I would say it's. I love them to death. When I come home after 4 hours, I need a break.
You need a break.
Like seriously, but I see it as an amazing language lesson as well.
Yeah.
Because of course the language we learn in language school and the one they're talking to each other is two different Portugueses.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I really enjoy it, but yeah, I need breaks in between. Yeah. That's for sure.
You mentioned two words which is very interesting in describing the Portuguese. One, tolerant. Sometimes too tolerant, probably.
Yeah. Yes, definitely.
But tolerant is, I think, something that the world needs more of sometimes as well. And then you also mentioned curious. Now, as a journalist, that's quite interesting, because that was my experience with the Portuguese. Was a lot of people would say things like, "Why did you leave South Africa? Or why would you come from South Africa to here?" And it wasn't a loaded question.
No.
It wasn't a derogatory question. It was curiosity. Like, really, I'm curious to know about you.
It's a bit different when you come from the Nordic countries, because people have the perception that the Nordic countries are very good at schools
exactly.
and healthcare. So I did experience people asking me in disbelief.
Yeah.
Why on earth would you come here?
Yeah.
And I thought the humbleness we talked about of the Portuguese might be, but I think they should stop. Because I think one of the best thing about the Portuguese society is the healthcare, which is excellent.
Yeah.
And I was treated here for the disease I have in my eyes with just as well as it was in Denmark. And I went to a checkup in Denmark, and they said they did a great job. We would have done exactly the same. I had a small operation on my hand. I received physical therapy for 2 months every day. I mean, that's unheard of where I come from.
Yeah.
So I think they should be very, very proud of the system they have. I think there's a misconception among the Portuguese about
that things work better in other places.
Yeah, and maybe a bit of envy as well. They think the lifestyle is much better, and honestly, it's not. My people might work less and make more, but they are extremely stressed. We have one of the highest stress rates in the world, a lot of mental health issues, a lot of depression. Of course, the weather makes people's health also quite bad.
For sure, especially mental health.
Yeah, exactly. So I would say I don't think the Portuguese should live under the impression that it's much better elsewhere. That's why people come here.
Yeah, I think that's something that's maybe changed the minds of Portuguese. Is well, all these people are coming from all these different parts of the world to live here. There must be something good, which I guess that's a good thing. But I think also, we go back to the history of Portugal with the dictatorship, and that's a very raw and fresh history still for a lot of people. Yeah. There is this poor us. Yeah. We repressed. We don't have it as good as everybody else. But I think people like yourself, people like me coming and going, why wouldn't I move to Portugal?
Yeah.
Why wouldn't I come here? It's obvious,
Yeah.
It's super interesting, that dynamic.
Yeah. But I think it's really good. I mean, we know a lot of young people leave Portugal along with Portuguese, but a lot of them also come back now. And I think that's well, thanks to a, excuse me, I'll just wait a second. Thanks to a much better economy now, they come back and hopefully some salaries getting better. I think that will change. They have tried to be out and they also maybe prefer to be back as well. So I think that will bring some energy back to this country. I do feel a lot of young people here don't have enough career choices.
Yeah.
They have a great education, but they're not able to
expand on that. Yeah.
yeah, and to have a career. And I think the culture here, the corporate culture, might be a little
Podes, obrigado.
pod.
Muito obrigado,
muito bom.
foi muito bom.
Sim,
Obrigado.
obrigada.
Já mais alguma coisa sobre o
Para agora não. Entretanto, um bocadinho mais tarde vou beber um café. Muito obrigado.
So I think where we're with the young people, I think the corporate culture here, it's not very trusting
Yeah.
of people and not, getting them to apply what they can. So I think that needs to change a lot. But yeah, the misconception that everywhere else is better, I would love for that to stop.
Yeah.
Because I think that stops a lot, and I think there is like a ceiling here, like just stay down a little bit. We have something in Denmark called Janteloven, which is actually a Norwegian invention, and it's 10 commandments that basically tells you to duck and not make a fuss, and don't think that you are doing anything in particular. And it's a very demeaning kind of way of life, and there is streaks of that in Portugal as well.
Yeah, don't make a noise. Just
And don't expect to live better or feel better or express yourself. Just keep down. And I think that's very sad, and I think we should oppose to that.
Yeah, that's a good point. The lady's just taken our food away.
Yeah.
What do you want to say about the food?
I love Portuguese food. I drink a lot of green wine, but if I drink at daytime, I'm just worth nothing.
Yeah,
So I had to limit myself.
you did well.
But actually, one of the businesses I tried to start when I came here was to export Portuguese wine to Denmark. And not in a big way, but in a small way to very good restaurants in Copenhagen. The issue was that in Copenhagen, prices are extremely expensive. And Danish restaurants have an easy time overpricing Italian wines, French wines, Spanish wines. But since not a lot of people know Portuguese wines, we were not able to sell them the good wines. So I ended up giving up on that project simply because the problem with Portuguese wine is that there are too many producers and the quantity is too little to export.
Yes.
And that means that you can't, and also the consistency.
Yeah.
So that means that you can only export very little amounts, and it takes a long time to change the wine market and to make, for instance, green wine be acknowledged. So unfortunately, that business didn't work, but it was interesting, and it taught me a lot about Portuguese wine.
About the wine.
Yeah.
And your husband's from the Alentejo region,
I
which is
love
huge.
the food there.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
What is your go-to?
There is a small village close to Terugem where there's this little restaurant with a lot of clocks that's outside on a church, in a church setting.
Okay.
And it just has petiscos and some of the cheeses in Alentejo as well. And the meats, especially the chorizo there and stuff like that. Migas, of course.
Yeah.
Everybody loves a good migas.
Yeah.
But to sit outside on that little tiny square with the sun setting, and it's just gorgeous.
Yeah.
Beautiful place.
Yeah. How do you think Portugal has changed you?
I'm not sure it has. I wish. So the Portuguese people are extremely, extremely patient. And I am not.
Okay.
And
You haven't become more patient since living here?
I would hope so.
Yeah.
But in order to test that, I think you should ask. I would say, I hope I learned a little bit more patience. But I'm sure there would be some people who said I haven't. We have been waiting 4 years to build our house, which I think I deserve a medal for.
That's a long time.
That's a long time.
That's a long time.
So maybe I did.
So maybe you are more patient. Yeah, you wouldn't have done that in Denmark.
Well, I wouldn't have built a house in Denmark for the start of it, actually.
Okay.
Simply because I like restoring stuff, and but I would say here to pay 50,000 euros for a ruin that is a ruin, I'm not going to do that here.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah. Okay, so possibly Portugal has made you a bit patient.
a bit more.
A bit more
A
patient.
bit more.
A bit
yeah.
more patient.
Yeah, we could say that.
Or let's say a little bit less impatient.
Yes, that would be the right way of saying it. I like learning a new language, and I mean, we speak English at home, unfortunately, not Portuguese.
Okay.
Because we started in English, and it's hard to go back.
Yes.
I think I'm a different person when I speak Portuguese. I think I'm nicer.
Okay.
My vocabulary is smaller.
Yeah.
The politeness is bigger in Portuguese than it is in Danish. We're very direct people,
Yes.
not as bad as the Dutch,
Yes. Yes.
but close.
yes.
Yeah,
Well, that's interesting.
yeah. Oh,
That's
sorry.
that's okay. But it's funny because again you see that accommodation of the Portuguese just already in the language.
Yes. Yeah.
I'll just speak English. It's fine. You know,
Yeah.
which is
Yeah.
phenomenal. There's not many places again where they're like that.
Yeah, true. But I do think, again, it's a double-edged sword, because if you come here and just speak English, you will never, I don't think you'll ever be a part of Portugal.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah. So, So I really, everyone who sees this, go to a Portuguese class.
Well, here we go. I mean, you said that it's. I know you said was a bit difficult to meet people here, but you have integrated in some way.
Yes, yes.
For people that are wanting to come to Portugal, they're wanting to look outside of Lisbon. They want to be part of a local community. They want to integrate. What would your advice be to someone that wants to do that?
Yeah, I would say, well, it depends very much if you're retired or if you're still working.
Yes.
Because if you, as me, have your own company and work from home, you need to integrate in a different way. Like do voluntary work at a local shelter, participate in group sports.
Mm-hmm.
I think if you're a little bit younger, I have a lot of friends who are like mid-30s, and they integrate through sports. Quite a lot easier, I would say. So I would definitely do that. I would say if you live in a smaller city, I think you will get there automatically. I think the worst thing you can do is be in a big city, right? That's always hard. The city is international.
Yeah. It's become that way.
Yeah. So don't expect to be integrated if you're in a hood here. Move out. Find a mid-sized city and go out and chat to people. Use the facilities. Join a group, something like that.
Yeah, that's good advice. What parts of the country have you visited? And
What
enjoyed?
haven't I? I think I've been pretty much everywhere, because we took the opportunity during COVID, when it wasn't total lockdown, to visit basically the whole country. And since I was the guide as well, I've been almost everywhere. I think Serra de Estrela we just went to once, but otherwise I've been around.
It's so diverse.
It is. I think if I hadn't met my partner, I would have fallen for Porto, because it's more Northern European than Lisbon is. We had some friends who said that Lisbon, at least the Aagaard, is like the first country of Africa. It is a different culture down here.
Yeah.
And I think it's easier to integrate in the north for us northerners.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah, I think it's much more our vibe. And also with one of the things I found the hardest was lighting. Lighting. So in Denmark, we live in darkness 8 months of the year.
Okay.
And that means that indoor lighting is a big deal. And indoor lighting in Portugal, at least here in the south, can be, oh God.
Even like lighting inside the house.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like the spots and oh my God, it's horrible. You look absolutely like shite. I'm sorry to say this, but that is actually a very big difference. Like the aesthetics of Lisbon, I love it. But when you tear down some old things and put up those spots, and the whiteness of it. And, it's awful. I really struggle with that.
Yeah, but it's interesting because you mentioned a couple of different places, and it is for a small country. It's so diverse
Yes.
in terms of the.
Yeah, I love Minho and Braga and some of the north. It's amazing. I really do.
Yeah.
The weather up there is trying.
Yeah, it's a bit depressing.
But I really like Jerusalem and Alentejo in general.
Yeah.
Places like Villanova de Mil Fonts, the whole coastline. I think it's awesome.
Yeah.
Really, really lovely.
Yeah, it's an amazing country.
Yeah.
Janne, what's one thing that you would like people to remember and to take away from our conversation?
Use your indicator. Like, if you have any Portuguese viewers, use your indicator when you're driving a car.
Okay.
That is really tough.
Okay.
Okay, that's really, really tough. Use your indicator, guys.
Anything else?
Yeah. Other than that, just come and try it out. I think you have to be here and see the country in order to see if it's something for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How can people follow you? See what you're doing, follow your work?
Well, my name is not easy. Do you have a pen?
I do somewhere.
Does anyone have pens these days? Because I have to write it down for the camera.
But I'm going to put it in the show notes.
Oh,
anyway,
show notes. Okay. So I have a company called Meow Productions, and you ask, why meow? Meow is the sound a cat makes.
Yes.
And meow-production.com is the website where you can follow our productions. And it's called Meow because I wasn't allowed to have cats because of my partner.
Okay.
So he said, why don't we call the company Meow then? So it's a Meow Production.
There we go.
And I have my own website, which is called janneaagaard.com, which is you have to write that down.
I will.
So you can follow that. I'm also on Instagram.
Okay.
So that's places where you can single me out.
Okay, so we'll put links in the show notes and people can follow. A question that we also ask all of our guests, Janne, Portugal, the simple life, why?
I don't think there's anything simple about it.
No?
No, not at all. Life is not simple. Life is a very complicated cookie.
But do you not think there's a simplicity in the way people live here, that they do things, or do you think that's also complicated?
Yeah, I think there's nothing simple about it. But I know you're called a simple life, so if I have to find something, it would be really good wine.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, the wine is simple.
Wine is amazing.
Okay, well, that's at least something.
Yeah, just get drunk and be happy.
Thank you for trying anyway. Thank you for being on the podcast.
You're very welcome.
And I'm going to let you call it.
Yes, and it's a wrap.
So thank you once again to our guest, and thank you to all of you for listening. Please subscribe, share with your friends, give us a thumbs up, and please leave a comment or a review. We always love to hear from you. Don't forget, Portugal The Simple Life also has a magazine, so download it. It's for free. We'll be back next week with a brand new episode, and as we say in Portugal, sejas bem-vindo. Welcome to The Simple Life.